Hi guys, I'm here to talk to you today about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which is the new Disneyland Star Wars component. Last weekend, I got to attend a special preview event for Galaxy's Edge, and so I'd like to share with you some thoughts. Um, so first off, one important thing to note is that during the preview event, we were not allowed to have our phones on our person or to take any pictures. So I don't have any pictures of the actual interior of the park to show you, but I do have some photos of the merch. So Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is located where Toontown used to be. So it replaces Toontown. If you're ever familiar with Toontown, it was like a part of Disneyland that was basically made to look like you're like inside of a cartoon. It was very small. It didn't have a lot of rides. It was more of like an exploration kind of thing, and it just wasn't great. So now they've cut that and they've dug deep and they've got this Star Wars thing in there, and I think there's a lot of hype around the new Star Wars thing, Galaxy's Edge. But Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, because of the space it takes place in, is actually also very small. You're talking about just one central structure and a few locations around it. The most major draw being this Millennium Falcon ride and like a scale, life-size model of the Millennium Falcon, which is very impressive. And so there's really only the one ride right now, and supposedly there's another ride coming, but right now it's just the one ride to go on, and that is basically the only thing that you can do for free there. You can take pictures of the different set pieces. You can eat food, but it just gets much more expensive from there. You think Disneyland is expensive? Wait until you go into this park, because this part of the park makes Disneyland significantly more expensive. If you want to participate in it, and you surely will, it's very nice stuff. The quality of the sets are consistent with the rest of Disneyland's material. So the fact that this is 2019 does not mean that Galaxy's Edge's sets are more advanced than, for instance, like the Haunted Mansion or the Indiana Jones ride. That's the same quality. It's about skin deep, and then if you try to like flip a button or mess with the nozzle that you see that looks like super like Star Warsy, like nothing really happens. The one ride is pretty nice. It's essentially like if you've been on the Star Tours ride that's elsewhere in Disneyland, and it's still elsewhere in Disneyland, the original Star Wars ride. It's essentially the same idea. You're in a like little box with a couple of other people. It's themed like the Millennium Falcon, and the box is sort of crazily jerking around while you're looking at a screen to simulate, flying the Millennium Falcon. The big difference is that everyone in the car, which is 6 people, is assigned some kind of role that's marginally interactive with the ride, which is kind of like a video game, but less interactive, less consequential. You're going to get through the whole same ride no matter how well anybody performs at the game. There are 3 roles. There's the pilot, the gunner, and the engineer. And the pilot is the only one, is like, the pilot is the most interactive one. The other 2 are very passive and can be described as like quick time events in video games. A prompt pops up on a button and you push it when the prompt comes up. Whereas the pilots, one pilot steers left and right, and one pilot steers up and down. And the lack of actual like individual coordination there kind of makes it fun. Like you're yelling at the other guy to make sure they're going left or right, and the other guy's yelling at you to make sure you duck under this like canyon thing or like whatever. So that's pretty fun. People in the Millennium Falcon cockpit are on screen. They're usually fighting with each other. But ultimately, like I said, the interaction is low consequence, and in some cases may as well not be there. I think your mileage will essentially be based on, how into it everyone in the cockpit is. Like if you're like me and there's like 2 old ladies kind of in the back, man, I'm talking about old ladies again. If you're like me and, you got a couple old ladies or something in the back who are like not participating in the ride, or like they don't care or they don't get what's going on to be like the gunner or whatever, then they're not going to care, and you're going to end up with a low score at the end, and whatever, because the score doesn't do anything either. I think there is some kind of app component to the part of the park. From what I've read, there's supposed to be an app that only works within Galaxy's Edge that kind of is like persistent through all the rides and experiences you have and creates scores, and there's like a competition or whatever. Unfortunately, I didn't get to experience this. Like I said, we could not bring our phones, and so I think there is some dimension of this that we didn't get. Maybe the points from the ride transfer onto your phone, and you can, I don't know, do something with them. Probably not anything of substance, but I will say that if you don't get to go on the Millennium Falcon ride and you can only do Star Tours is just as good. Even the set pieces in the line for Star Tours are a lot better than the set pieces in the line for the Millennium Falcon ride, with the exception, of course, the actual Millennium Falcon, which is not in the line itself. If I recall correctly, and I didn't get to go to Star Tours in this particular visit, but Star Tours had like actual droids not like walking around, but actual droids hanging out, and some characters like that. And the Millennium Falcon ride doesn't. It has this kind of engine that some characters you can't see are ostensibly trying to start. Which if you're there for a long enough time without access to your phone, eventually gets pretty boring. So yeah, Star Tours is still just as good. They still have a Star Wars museum in Tomorrowland that I did get to check out while I was there. That thing is great too, that's a perfectly cool thing to check out. It's too crowded in Galaxy's Edge. It's too expensive in Galaxy's Edge. Go and check out these statues and scale models they have in the Star Wars Museum in Tomorrowland, and I think that was a really fun experience. That was on par with the Galaxy's Edge experience. The rest of the park, I think, is where a lot of people will maybe be like disappointed or even worried, and I think it's something to really be aware of. The two other major attractions at the park right now there's a lightsaber building thing. You go to like a Jedi temple and you like build a lightsaber, and there is a robot like droid building thing. You go into like a droid factory and you build a droid. Both of those are way more expensive than I think anyone would think going in. The lightsaber experience is $225 per person for your lightsaber experience, and the droids are $100 per person. In the end, you do get, a custom lightsaber or a custom droid, but those are, I think, pretty steep for most people. I would say the majority of people would have a hard time making a trip or affording a trip to Disneyland, just the entry fee and the travel costs and all those things. Well, now if you want to participate in these things, you got to tack on those triple digit numbers, and you're looking at multiplying that by like the number of children you're trying to bring or the number of friends you have. That's just how much that expense is going to broaden, which is pretty nuts to me. I think, especially because a lot of people will be coming to Disneyland soon to check out this place in particular, and most of them, I think, will only be able to go on that one Millennium Falcon ride, which is somewhat unremarkable by Disneyland standards. What you get for the money, I would say, it's a fun experience. The droid thing, there's a conveyor belt with all these droid parts, and you kind of like hodgepodge your droid together. I think both of the experiences, I think for the money, they need more options and more variety. It's a custom experience, but there's only so many options. You're basically either making R2-D2 or BB-8, and then there's like 4 or 5 different colors you can apply to that, and like marginally different heads. That lack of customization for the droids is especially felt because it seems like they run out of certain parts or certain colors of parts rather quickly. I mean, they were out of a particular color by the time I had arrived, which was half an hour or an hour into their opening. So the lack of customization is crunched even more by the limited quantities of supplies. But ultimately, one thing that disappointed me about the experience was that, my droid did not look too different from like anybody else's droid. so it felt less personal. The droids are really cool. You know, they're remote control, and they like beep like you'd expect them to beep, and you can buy stickers to put on them. And there's like a power tool component. The idea of giving children power tools to put together these robots is pretty funny to me. And then they hang out in this box while you're walking around the park, and they like, if you pass another person who has one, they like beep at each other, or if you pass different like things, they beep at each other. These things fucking beep all the time, and you'll be kind of confused about how to turn them off at the end of the day when you're like trying to sleep. This thing's still occasionally beeping. There's an off switch, and the lightsaber thing has some of the same. I think the lightsaber thing is a lot more fun and a lot more interesting. You essentially pick like a class of Jedi. There's like 4 different classes. I don't remember what they all are, and they give you a pin, and you sign up in advance choosing one of these classes, like a nature Jedi. I think I picked the nature Jedi, and based on the class that you pick, you get an assortment of materials to build your lightsaber during this course. So once it's time for your appointment, you kind of walk into this room, and there's like you and like 12 other people, I want to say, give or take, and there's a couple of like Jedi masters and like the voice of Yoda to like guide you in the construction of your lightsaber. Both of my Jedi masters were named Carlos. Thank you, Carlos and Carlos. Even outside of the limited options within each class, like if you had access to all of the parts no matter what, I would say that, like the droids, there are too few options considering the price of the course and considering the need to individualize. And the quality of the materials is a little bit inconsistent. Metal parts are made of metal, but the wooden parts are plastic, and the like bone parts or the stone parts are made of plastic as well. So basically, depending on what assortment of parts you have access to, your lightsaber will look more or less authentic, actually, which is sort of strange. And another strange detail, too, is that essentially the different sections and types of parts are actually kind of themed. I went for this kind of filigree kind of theme on part of my lightsaber, and they might not line up in like an even sort of way. You might have a line over here, and then the bottom part below it has a line over here. They're not manufactured with the intention of having symmetry. So I think that's weird. Like, you're buying a very expensive, this isn't like a plastic Target lightsaber. This is like your custom personalized lightsaber. And if you picked the wrong parts or accidentally were handed a tray of the wrong parts, your lightsaber might look like really crappy because of that weird thing. I will say, if you don't go with some kind of symmetrical design thing and you're just hodgepodging some metal shit together, it might look more like what they do in the movies, much less intentional. Mine luckily worked out. And you can see a picture of my lightsaber here. It's a nature-themed lightsaber. It's purple. You literally pick a crystal. It's like, I'm assuming made of plastic light that you put in the core of the lightsaber. It determines your color. Again, not a lot of options on color. You're basically looking at green, blue, purple, red, a lot of the stuff you see in the movies, but, you know, it's Disney. They could be more imaginative. I think there are black lightsabers and white lightsabers and other stuff like that in the gaming and all that other stuff. Would have really liked to see just more options. You know, this is a, but I can also see where, giving people too many options makes them take much more time, and that clogs up the lines. The design of the experience is really cool. They're getting guided through this thing, and they try to create some kind of significance around each part, and then the big reveal when you finally pull out your lightsaber and it's all glowing. There's nothing like the experience of standing in a room with 12 other men in their 30s and 40s who are all like fawning over their new toy laser sword. Like, that is, it's pretty hilarious. And some people, you know, at Disneyland, some people just have a lot more energy than I do. A lot of people bring a lot of enthusiasm to Disneyland that was probably more energy and enthusiasm than I can bring to anything for perhaps the rest of my life combined. And so some of these people in the lightsaber thing, they were just like freaking out and responding to Yoda, and they were just really into it. You know, they're not like full on Westworld and maybe that's for the best, but you know, there was this. It was really cool. A lot of people got really into it. You know, I got to build a lightsaber, you know, with my dad. That was a lot of fun. Um, and yeah, so the lightsaber thing's really cool, but very, very expensive. And then everything else is just shops. Everything else is a shop there. It's pretty remarkably just a mall. There's a blue milk stand. Not the texture of milk, not really milky. It's pretty much a smoothie. It's like a chalky kind of smoothie. Maybe they should change the recipe. That's okay. $7 for that, by the way. Um, Everything there is pretty exclusive. They have another shop that's sort of a Jedi temple. I actually liked the Jedi temple shop a lot. Lots of authentic costume items, again, very expensive, but also on display all kinds of like masks and monsters that aren't for sale, or they have a vivisection view of like a Sarlacc pit, which was really, really cool. It's like animatronic. It like moves a little bit. I really liked looking at that. I stared at that thing for like a good 15 minutes. So I liked that shop, but again, another expensive shop, cool items. There's definitely a big fear of missing out thing going on there because everything there is exclusive. You're not going to get it on the internet. You're not going to get a custom lightsaber on the internet. You're not going to get, you know, an authentic Emperor Palpatine cloak on the internet. They have a, you know, the board game Chewie plays on the Millennium Falcon. You can get that only there. The weirdest thing I think they have is like a custom shop where you can buy like a Salacious Crumb. You want a custom one of those? They have that for some reason. I don't know why. It's very much themed after the new Disney Star Wars movies. The presence of the original trilogy kind of vibe is there, but the prequels are right out. Nothing feels sleek and kind of chromy like the prequels. It's all kind of like industrial, kind of steampunk kind of sci-fi stuff. There's a Jedi thing, there's a Rebel thing, there's an Empire thing, there's all those vibes. I would have liked to see some kind of like bounty hunter vibe. That's a big part of Star Wars. Everyone's favorite character, Boba Fett, you know, not really involved in all that. Maybe that's like the more violent part of Star Wars. I don't know, but you know, people are getting their hands chopped off in bars and shit, like in the first Star Wars movie. So, you know, whatever, man. Yeah, I think another big thing about planning this, like if for some reason, somehow you can afford to go to the park and then you can do the Jedi thing and build a lightsaber and you can build a robot, like then you have to figure out how to carry this shit around the park for the rest of the day. And the lightsaber has a lot of glass components and the robot's pretty cumbersome. And it's like, are you going to carry that like onto Space Mountain or like, you know, like what do you do with all this stuff? It doesn't fit in like a locker. Like, are you doing this at the end of the day? If you do it at the end of the day, do you risk running into a bigger crowd? The whole thing is designed to get you to buy a ton of crap, but then like there's no shopping cart. Or you can't cart around a bunch of stuff at Disneyland, you know, for the rest of the day in a full crowd with roller coasters and a bunch of other people. That seems really challenging. I mean, I went there specifically for this event to see only this part of the park, so it wasn't really a problem for me, but I can imagine if you're trying to integrate it into a larger experience, it could be a big problem. Especially the more people you have around you. I imagine Disneyland is really trying at this point to encourage people to spend multiple days there, and again, that's not something a lot of people can do. A lot of the crew, the staff, the cast members of the experience, they do a good job. They never break character. Like a couple of times you could see that they were trying really hard not to break character when you're asking them really practical questions like where's the bathroom or what's in this drink or like any of these things. But to their credit, they're really trying their best. They're really trying to give you a good experience. I think they all did a fine job. The costuming on them is really nice instead of going with these, you know, big Disney masks or whatever, you know. You just have this kind of like rebel aesthetic, you know, with patchy kind of vests and like pilot clothes, and there's stormtroopers walking around. From what I could tell, they were harassing like the guests, which is kind of cool. I mean, they didn't come up to me or anything, but I saw from like a line that they were doing that. That seemed cool. A lot of the, you know, a lot of this, a lot of the vibe is pretty great. You know, it's a cool thing to come there for. I think the big thing to just be aware of is the price of the things. Plan ahead. Can you afford these things? If you can only afford some of them, which ones do you want? What's your exit strategy with the items? You know, I look forward to seeing how Disney evolves the area, and I'm sure they'll be investing in this thing pretty heavily for the next couple of years. I also look forward to, you know, a Marvel, whatever thing they have going over on the California Adventure side. They have like a Marvel thing they're planning. I'm really excited about whatever they might bring to that table. So if you have any questions, comments, like, subscribe, all those things, put those questions and comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. And